This is a TalkStation original podcast.
On this week's episode of the Paper Boys podcast, JJ and I interview the one and only Blake Dodge, former West Carteret cross-country and track star. We talk about her time as a high school phenom, her experience at UNC Chapel Hill, and her career as a journalist. It all starts right now on the Paper Boys podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Paper Boys podcast. I'm JJ Smith.
And I'm Zach Nally.
We're reporters with the Carteret County News-Times. We're joined as always by our producer Ross Caraway. And this week we are joined by someone who I have written about more than almost anybody else, and that is former West Carteret track and field and cross country star Blake Dodge. Thank you for joining us.
Anytime.
I've probably written about Cooper Webb more because he started dirt bike racing when he was 4.
That's unfair.
And now he's 27.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's got more years on Blake. And Lonnie Chisenhall, who was in the New Times freshman year and then went to college and then had an 11-year career in Major League Baseball. So that's like a 15-year run. So he's going to have more than her. But she's probably number 3.
We were talking about it when I came on in 2013. That was a name that I heard just constantly. I mean, almost every issue there was the name Blake Dodge in there, for good reason.
I talked to Blake so much in high school that when I went up to her Friday night, she was inducted into the West Carteret Athletics Hall of Fame with Ty Roach and Marshall Windsor. And I said, "What are you doing Wednesday?" And she said, "Why do you want to get together for coffee?" So we've talked to each other a few
You've
times.
reached that level now where the people you've covered are old enough to...
Yeah, they're real people.
We were
They're real people.
making faces at each other during halftime.
Yeah, her and Delaney
Like the
sticking their tongue out at me.
sticking
And
their
yeah.
tongue out.
He's good to make faces with.
So I looked it up on our website, and I found 26 stories that either had her name in the headline or that her photo was the main photo for the story. And then times where she was mentioned in the story was about 90.
Yeah.
So she's been mentioned in the News Times quite a few times. I think her mom told me that my name is in their scrapbook as much as hers is because of the byline writing about her constantly. I was her one-man publicity PR person in high school.
Well, let's run it down because you were right. It's been mentioned a lot of times, but
Right.
what was it for?
She won 15 state titles in high school.
I didn't cover you. I didn't know this. This is pretty impressive.
Also was a
already.
member of a team state championship, so that's 16 state titles she has. I don't know if you know about numbers, but that's a high one.
That's a pretty big
16.
one.
Was the first person to ever win a cross-country state championship. She was the first person to ever win a runner-up state championship in cross-country and was a state meet MVP 3 times and competed in national championships, was All-American. So it was, and was the North Carolina High School Athletic Association Female Athlete of the Year, the first time our county had ever had one of those. She was a Moorhead Kane scholar. It was just a lot.
So it makes sense when you run it down like that. Of course,
Yeah.
we're gonna have a lot of stories in there.
Right.
Does it still sound weird when you have your resume run down at you like that? Like, do you remember all of those individual moments, or was it all kind of a blur?
It's kind of a blur, and I kind of remember like big individual moments. It was definitely a lot, like for me too at the time, like stressful, but also like really fun. And I think I left high school with like an inflated ego. So.
How could you not?
Well, I want to start out with some controversy right off the bat. Make it like start off hot here. Born and raised in Beaufort, and then went to West Carteret.
Oh
so,
my
what do you think? You're
goodness.
too good for East Carteret? What's your deal?
I don't blame her for crossing the bridge.
Well,
one bit.
I always went to schools in Moorhead. Like I went to St. Egbert, and then I just kind of followed like all my classmates.
That seems like an easy out, but we'll give it to you.
I'm just gonna stick to the talking points.
And
on that.
probably soccer played a role in that too. All the club stuff. You were just
Yeah,
playing
my
with.
soccer team was in Moorhead.
Yeah.
My club soccer team was in Jacksonville. So later on, but
Right.
for a while we were like a good little crew, coached by Bert Pierce actually.
Oh, nice. You didn't have much association with Beaufort other than being raised there, did you?
Well, like I love the town,
Right.
Like. And the
Friends
the
and
people and
Peers wise.
community and stuff, but
Yeah.
I definitely was like
Yeah.
a patriot in that way.
Well, you follow your friends, you know.
Sure.
If that's where the people you know, that's
right.
where you want to be.
That's right. So, how old are you when you realize I can run really fast?
Definitely elementary school.
Yeah.
Because Sonny Hyman did our PE.
The godfather of
godfather.
Carteret County running.
Neon
Oh,
green.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he would like give us Skittles the faster that we ran. So me and Maddie Fisher would always have like the most Skittles. And I was like, this running thing is kind of cool. Like you just beat boys and get a bunch of Skittles. Yeah, so that was my earliest memory. And me and Maddie were like really competitive with each other and way ahead of like all the boys still, which was like super fun. And they would like scheme to try and beat us. I think we only got beat they did like a weekly mile run or something around the school a couple times. I think we got beat like one time in elementary school by Timothy D.
And that's everything when you're that age, beating boys, right?
Yeah, no, it was awesome.
Yeah. What about soccer? Where did that rank? Was that more important to you when you were young growing up, or?
Well, soccer to this day too, like was still always like a first love, like remained kind of a constant passion. I was playing from 3 or 4 up all the way till like when high school finished. I loved soccer. I feel like I never really got it together with soccer, and I was on some teams that were kind of like almost really good, but we struggled to like find a rhythm and stuff. That was true for my club team and my high school team. But like I was a team captain and all that, and like I was like overly intense about soccer, and I had to learn to like stop yelling at people, and I was like kind of very involved. Yeah, no, but I always loved soccer. I still play now a little bit. Yeah. But
and you played all 4 years, right?
Yeah, and that was tricky with track, obviously.
Sure.
I kind of split my time every spring season between spring track and soccer, and that was sort of like tricky to navigate. But on the other hand, there's nothing more demanding really than a soccer game. If you're playing like midfield and sprinting like the entire time, like I never came out of the game. So those first few games of each season, I was just completely gassed. Like it didn't matter how fit I was on the track. There's like a special like soccer fitness. I think it like might have helped maybe a little in the long run. But those two teams and commitments definitely like competed.
I'm all for multi-sport athletes, but I remember her junior year, her playing soccer in the spring after winter track where she had won the state meet MVP. She'd won like 4 state championships. Her sophomore year, she'd won the cross-country state championship. It's like, okay, this person's on another level. They really need to be paying attention to running, and she's playing soccer
for a team that finished 5-10-2.
I'm like, what? I remember covering those games. Like, what are you doing out there? Get off of the field.
Well, you don't want to risk
roll an ankle.
Yeah,
you're going to catch a cleat in the shin bone, and that's all she wrote.
And I imagine that's so different too, going from a sport where the team points are being added up, but it's just you and the shoes in front of you or behind you or whatever. It's just you out there versus the coordination of a team in soccer and the multiple people coming in and making commitments. And I imagine it was probably fun to be part of a team though, and to keep that part of your sports life going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was like it's totally different beast, but I always just like loved it a lot, and I was kind of like tempting injury and stuff. I definitely had some gnarly injuries. I guess I got lucky overall though on that front. By my senior year, we did have an arrangement where anytime there was like a speed workout on the track, I would do that and then go over to soccer. So that was a shift and like controversial at the time or whatever. But I honestly think soccer must have helped. Just given.
Was there ever any kind of concern that you might get an injury that would risk the potential educational opportunities that were going to be offered, or was that just not part of the thought process?
I just loved it.
Yeah,
like
no
I
doubt.
don't know.
You weren't not going to play, right?
Yeah, I was really passionate about soccer.
Was there a time you thought you might play college soccer, or were you pretty much knew running was going to be your ticket?
I think running just kind of took off in a way where it was like I would have had to really go against the grain to like stop that train or whatever. I think it just kind of had like a natural like momentum to it that maybe if that hadn't have been the case, I would have like buckled down more in soccer. But when you're getting like all those calls, like from all those schools, it was like, maybe I should see where this goes. I remember the summer of my junior year, I think I got back from some trip or whatever, and I checked my phone messages, and while I was gone, it must have been the eligibility time where you're allowed to like get calls, and I was just listening to my dad, and we were just like going through all these voicemails of like every school you can think of. Hi Blake, my name is da da da, and I'm the head coach of da da da, and it was like, whoa. So it just had this natural. I felt like I had to like pursue that. Yeah.
Is that when you knew that summer that this running is going to afford me some amazing educational opportunities?
Yeah, I honestly I didn't earlier in high school. I thought I would be done with running in high school. Just I was such a intense student, and I didn't know much about college athletics. But yeah, I would say once you get to a certain level, it's I felt like I had to see it through. Yeah, later on in high school.
Were you offered by virtually everybody in the country?
Yeah, even Oregon made a later stage move, but I was already locked in. That happened to John Crossley too. He got a very 11th hour call from the staff at Oregon. Yeah, Stanford, Virginia Tech, UVA, UNC, NC State, Texas, Harvard, Georgetown. It was
Jeez.
totally. Oh, and I didn't know this at the time, but my dad was answering calls and telling coaches at schools he didn't want me to go to that we weren't interested. He told
Agent Dad there.
he told Texas A&M, oh nope, sorry, we're not Texas people, and he told Georgetown no, because he didn't want to deal with I-95 traffic, which I found out, I don't know, 5 years later.
I'm Ryan Kelly,
I'm Lynn Schultz.
and we're the hosts of the Senior Moment podcast.
Each week, we bring you conversations with experts right here in our community about the common and uncommon challenges facing our aging population and caregivers.
We discuss the challenges of caring for a loved one with dementia, as well as the importance of health planning, family history, and much more.
Join us every week for Senior Moment, streaming now on Spotify, YouTube, and at CarolinaCoastOnline.com.
Hi, folks. Bob Lowry here, and this episode of the Paper Boys podcast is brought to you by the Carteret County Speedway.
Let's talk about Cardinal Gibbons and how many more state championships you would have if it wasn't for that Raleigh Catholic school.
Sure. They were a thorn in our side, definitely.
Mary Grace Doggett.
Yep, and Sarah Rapp
Yep.
earlier. Yeah, wow, that's really throwing me back. Yeah, I mean, 3A I feel has gotten even more competitive on the other hand since I was in school. But yeah, Cardinal Gibbons kept us from definitely doing everything that we wanted to do.
There's a lot of NC mile splits where you're number 2 and one of those is number 1.
Yeah, I remember chasing after Sarah Rapp as a freshman. I think I came in second to her
Yep.
2 or 3 times maybe, and she was such a stud, taller than me, stronger than me. She was super just jacked, and it wasn't gonna happen.
You came up with that name pretty quick. I imagine these are the names that sort of stick with you too, even as you've left the sport behind, or as the years pass, you remember the Cardinal Gibbons girls and the could have beens, would have beens, or whatnot. And it's when you're that good, I'm sure there's a group of people at the top that all remember each other.
Yeah, the 4 years that Blake was in high school, Sarah Rapp won the state championship in cross country. Blake's freshman year, Blake was second, and then Blake won it sophomore year. Mary Grace Doggett was second, and then Mary Grace Doggett won junior and senior year.
Okay.
So if it wasn't Blake winning, it was somebody from
So
Cardinal Gibbons winning.
they remember her as well, I'm
I'm
sure.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember with Sarah Rapp, my first indoor meet as a freshman, The 1,000 meters is like kind of confusing if you're a freshman because it doesn't end where it starts. And I kind of lost track of like where we were in the race, and I was going to kick at the end. And then I realized like we were coming up on the end, and I kicked, and I came within like less than a second of her, but she won. And
so you kicked too late, you mean? Like
yeah, like sprinting at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that cross country race that Mary Grace won our junior years. We were neck and neck the entire first like 3 miles, and then there's that brutal last hill like 500 meters away from the finish, and I made a move at the bottom of the hill, and the hill totally gassed me entirely. I had nothing left at the top, so I just like jogged it in, and she ran away with it. I think I came in like 4th or 5th, but I was like right there until the very stuff like that. It's like, yeah, I mean, Cardinal Gibbons was like, it was like a curse word to us.
I was going to say, do you think you probably remember finishing 2nd, 3rd, or 4th those races more than the ones you won, maybe?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, especially the ones where it felt like there was something specific that got in the way, like something you could have like done differently.
Second guessing.
Or like you mentioned, like where if you had just known where that race was going to end, definitely would have gotten that one with the 1,000 meters.
So you're waiting when you're recruiting and you're going through your recruiting process for the Moorhead Kane Scholarship, which is a scholarship that UNC Chapel Hill offers that pays for, you name it, it pays for it, right? Books and board and room and travel in the summers and all these projects you get to do and stuff. What was that situation like where you're like, do I commit to somebody? Do I wait on the scholarship? If I don't get the scholarship, then what am I left with as far as recruiting? What was that?
It was stressful because I was in the running for the Moorhead and the Park scholarship at NC State. They take their time to offer those.
It's towards the end of your senior year, right?
They come in April or something.
Jeez.
You graduate in May. Every other runner's committed, at least verbally, in like October, November. And I had offers from a handful of schools, including Stanford. I felt like I wanted to go there if I didn't get the Moorhead. And yeah, it was just kind of a balancing act. I tried to tell coaches like the position I was in. Most of them understood. Some of them reduced their offers substantially. Actually, Chapel Hill, ironically, decreased my offer from 100% to 30% in that time. So that was like kind of a bummer.
Well, kudos to you for still going there.
Yeah, well, again, it's like it's just a balancing act. And once I got that offer from the Moorhead, I felt like I couldn't not do that. In some ways, like the Stanford environment was a better fit. I could just really see myself in those athletes. They were all very driven outside of sports, and they were all very good athletes. But just like going to California and like, I don't know, I felt like the community was rooting for me a little bit with the Moorhead, and I know like it meant so much to my dad, and also the scholarship itself just felt like, how do you
it's a name, the scholarship. It's
that, and like the Moorhead tries to foster a very like intentional community where kids take like ownership of what they might be able like to do in the world, and all of the like summer enrichment and stuff they program is sort of like based on that value. And so you have kids who are like 20 who've been to like South Africa and Thailand to like whatever, cure cancer. And it just felt like it's like
breaking news here on the Paper Boys podcast.
yeah, it was just that kind of thing where it's like, wow, if I could just even be around those kids, like how would that shape me, basically. And it's to be sure, kind of a stressful like thing to put on like young people, and I think that can be hard too to balance for kids in that community. But
especially doing that, being a full-time athlete, right?
Yeah, that was always felt like a competing interest more so than in high school.
They don't make it easy on you for sure. They get you out there and you're doing all these projects and I'm sure seminars and things like that, all these different things that come with being a part of it. If that hadn't happened for you, I guess we know the answer based on what you said. Where would you have gone?
I think I would have gone to Stanford. Yeah. Sometimes I wonder too, like that coach was very middle distance minded, but I wonder like if I'd been excelling at athletics, maybe that would have messed up some of my other stuff that I had going on kind of in college. No, Stanford's sort of like the one that got away or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah, but that was just a big like pivot moment for me.
Are you happy now you took the Moorhead Cane? Was that the right choice? In hindsight, being
now that you're through it, yeah.
I think it was like the harder choice, and like we'll see, if they made me into a good egg or not. Like,
it's funny. Your situation was so much different than John Crossley, who you were there. First, go pivot back to Blake said middle distance coach. Her events were the 800, the 1,000, and the 1,600. Could you have done 400? Could you have done 32? Or did you have no interest in those? You were 8,000, 1,600.
In college
or high school.
Well, in high school, I did whatever Windsor told me to do. And in college, I was pretty much like a pure 8.
Okay.
Because I struggled the first couple of years to hit like the volume and the mileage that would have been like required to go much further than that. I was on the cross country team. I ran one pretty good time at ACCs in the 6K. And I ran the 1,500 like one time as like a training of practice kind of a thing. I think had I been able to stay healthy and if my coaches and I had like a clearer like plan, then I could have moved up. Like I'll remain curious about like what I could have done in the mile had I had like better endurance. Yeah.
It's funny comparing your career to John Crossley, who you both were the same senior class of 2014, whereas you waited till the very last second where he committed very early to East Carolina. He wanted to be close to home, and then he goes on and he blows up at the end of his senior year. He wins a state championship in the 800. They're both 800 runners. Then he wins a national championship.
Yeah.
Then he's named the Gatorade Runner of the Year. And like Blake said earlier, he could have probably named his ticket wherever he went, but he was already committed to ECU.
Yeah, he wanted to stay close to home, close to family. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, he's got to be one of the most talented runners that like I've ever seen.
It's pretty cool that y'all had the same event. You had to have some discussions about what it was like to be an 800 runner, right?
I think we had like a mutual kind of respect for each other. And we kind of just ran practice a little bit and like, it's funny, we didn't really like talk that much, like, but we like admired each other, I think. And I definitely fed off like the excitement around like the other person's wins. Like I remember with the nationals that he won, I don't think I was able to see him win because I was warming up, but someone came over and like told me like John just like won like no one was even like thinking about that. Like he was far from the number 1 seed, and that feeling of like, yo, like we're from Moorhead and we're like up in here like competing for this, like that was inspiring. Yeah.
Blake was at West in maybe the most talent-rich period. She's there with John Crossley, who wins a national championship and who's the Gatorade Runner of the Year. She wins her almost 24 plus state championships. She's pushing 20. Mackenzie Whitaker is there. She's multiple state champions. She wins state meet MVPs. Amy Fisher is there. She's the second person to ever win a cross-country state championship after Blake. She's the only person to be all-state all 4 years. Even Blake didn't do that. Mackenzie goes to East Carolina. John goes to East Carolina. Amy goes to Wilmington, ends up at Carolina. What was that stretch like when that's like an 8-year run where major Division I talent, people winning multiple state championships and competing at a national championship level and winning All-Americans?
We had a good culture. Like, we built like a culture out West of like respect. For Windsor, you know, I had like dumb rules about like we don't spit on the track, like we spit off to the side, like stuff like that. You know, and I think me and John set like good examples for the younger folks, and they continued that, like hearing about like Delaney getting to be senior and Emmy and Mac, like they just like it was almost like kind of a little bit of the mentality of a college team. Like we took it really seriously.
Were you business-like, would you say?
Business-like, but it was fun though. Yeah. And we wanted to like get in there. Like we wanted to win. And we had, I mean, Windsor is just, so it's like when you say that like these folks went on to win stuff in college, I'm just like, yeah, because like that's kind of like the program that we were running, you know, and it felt good to like win and like just have that culture of like respect and like we're gonna work hard and get it done.
I'm sure it was success breeds success kind of a thing. The other kids are competing and succeeding. You want to be right there with them.
Yeah, I think so. And a lot of that just stems from Windsor. Like, he doesn't take any crap. And, like, I definitely would have my moments where I went up to him and would complain about something. And he would kind of hear me out. But at the end of the day, it was always like, all right, are you done? Like, we've got some 300s to run. All right. He would be like, all right.
So Blake keeps mentioning Windsor. He also was inducted into the West Carteret Athletics Hall of Fame on Friday, the halftime of the Mullet Bucket. He's been coaching track and field for 54 years. That's all. He was the USA Track and Field National Track Coach of the Year when he coached up in Lake Braddock in the D.C. area in Virginia. He was 32 years up there. He coached Alan Johnson, who was a hurdler who won an Olympic gold medal. He come down here, and then he gets hung up with this girl here and Crossley and Whitaker and Fisher and all the other ones. And he's coached multiple 27, I think they said Friday night, 27 state champion, individual state championships. He's coached 2 team state championships, more conference and regionals that you can shake a leg at. And he's a character.
He's definitely a character. Like, he's larger than life. You can, like, hear him yelling across multiple football fields. And, God, that was always awesome to be in a race. Like, you can't hear anyone or anything. But
you can hear him.
Like, Windsor just bellowing something.
Something with Youngin in it.
It's just something. Like, you know, it didn't even matter. It was like, all right, that's Windsor. Like, I have to, like, do my thing. He incredible person, incredible coach, and those accomplishments that you just listed, like, I mean, he was at Lake Braddock, I think, even longer than West, and I think he also got inducted to their Hall of Fame. He's got athletes all over the world at every level, and we all feel like the same way about him.
Yeah, in a 16-year stretch at Lake Braddock, he was assistant or a head coach, whether cross-country, indoor, and outdoor track and field. And in that 16-year stretch, the school won 17 state championships and 11 state runner-up finishes. And at one point, the girls' teams in those 3 sports won 13 straight state titles.
Mm-hmm.
So
And he could tell you every single one of those men and women's like splits the day that they won. Like he just has this like incredible memory and like passion around the details and stuff. Like I remember sometimes I'm trying to summarize something that happened. Like, yeah, I was a little slower through the first 4, and he's like, you were 61.9 or whatever. So he's just has a special mind for this kind of thing.
and now he's coaching another West special athlete in Tyler Collins. Are you keeping up with her?
I definitely at least on the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Windsor the other night at the ceremony and stuff, we mostly talked about, he mostly talked about Tyler.
Who was maybe putting her name or her face on the Mount Rushmore of Carteret County track and field. She's already won a national championship in the high jump. She's been a runner-up in the high jump. She's won, I don't know what it is now, 3 or 4 state championships, and she's still got this year to go, and she's just killing it.
Like the way that I started and only read Blake If Maceo Donald, our new reporter, just started, that might be a name that he's reading left and right as well.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things.
She's the next. She's in the line. So then we go to Carolina, Division I, ACC, track and field, cross country. No joke.
Totally different
Yeah.
environment. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Was it a little bit of a slap in the face?
Yes, and I think I didn't have the same, like what I had with Windsor was really special, and at Carolina I think I had 4 or 5 coaches for my 5 years, so the first years were pretty rocky. I was like pretty injured. I kind of had an attitude problem where like I thought I was like really talented, and I think the coaches didn't like that, but they also didn't realize in some ways that like I would do the thing, you know what I mean? Like I cared deeply and would work hard no matter what. Like I wanted to like reach like the limits of my potential, and I think we kind of like missed each other somewhere in there. Injured the first couple years. Junior year, kind of started to get it together. By senior year, I was back to being pretty fit. That was the year that I placed at ACC's, and I remember that indoor meet. I ran 2:07 3 times in 3 days, and that was the fastest I ever ran in the 800. So that felt like pretty good. I did a 5th year because I felt like, you know, we're just getting started with this again, like I wanted to see what I could do. So I came back for a 5th year, but only during the spring semester to do outdoor track. I took an internship in New York that fall. Broke my, stress reaction, which is almost a stress fracture, my femur. So I was in the gym like 3 hours a day, cross training. This is with a new coach, by the way, who was great, Andrea McDonough. I had 3 weeks training on the ground before my last ACCs, and I ran at that conference 2:08, which is pretty good given the circumstances, and I missed qualifying for that final by like a second. Did a last chance meet, didn't run very well. So with college, it didn't really like shake out the same way high school did. But I look back and know that like I really like did my best. Yeah, didn't really like leave anything out there.
Yeah, Blake was all ACC in the winter of her senior year. She ran 2:07:02. She passed somebody in the past 20 meters to get 6th place, which was the last all ACC spot. It's not bad to finish college with an all ACC honor, right?
No, I just like wanted to like win the whole thing. And,
Yeah.
You know, I never really like changed. I didn't exactly like calibrate my goals to like the context. Like I won in high school. I wanted to win in college. Like I wanted to go to nationals. And that felt possible, but no, I'm still proud, like, to be like in the mix with the best in the conference is definitely like pretty fine.
Is there a little what if though? If I career would have gone a little bit different here, a little bit different there. Maybe I am going to nationals.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And like after college, I trained on my own pretty hard for like 3 years because I had the unfinished business bug. And I got to see some like cool stuff out of my body, but I'd kind of lost the spark or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just kind of brutal working out on treadmills by yourself every day in the dark.
Division I athlete is no joke, no matter the sport, what they ask of you, time commitment of your body. You're also a Morehead Kane Scholar, so you're doing all kinds of stuff with that. You're in the school paper. You're in a band called Dissimilar South. You got a little bit going on in college.
That was sort of maybe part of like the tension sometimes with my coaches was I wanted to do all the stuff. And in high school, I could. And in college, it felt more like you have to pick one. And I disagreed with that. I pushed back for a long time. By the end of college, though, I had stopped everything but the band, school, and running because I was like really trying to dial it in. But yeah, it's a lot for kids to manage, whether or not they're taking up a bunch of extracurriculars and stuff. Like the demand on and pressure on student athletes at Division I schools is like hard to describe. So, but yeah, so.
Well, you got your money's worth out of that Morehead Kane, didn't you? We'll talk a little bit about a viral moment for Blake. She's at Carolina. She's writing for the Daily Tar Heel, and she writes an editorial for the News and Observer. It deals with subtle sexism, and man, the websites and talking heads, Rush Limbaugh and Breitbart and Fox News, man, they caught a hold of it, and you became the poster child there for millennial snowflakes there for a minute, didn't you? Is that about as much as you want to comment on that?
No,
What was those few weeks after that?
Not a bad poster to be on.
It was fine. Like, I think it was fine. I didn't really care. It was kind of funny. It was kind of cool that Rush Limbaugh thought I was important enough to, like, roast. It was fine. My only concern with all of that was, like, did I write, like, a cringy, bad piece that needed some tweaks to, like, the tone and, like, the approach? Because it was so easily parodied. But it was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was fine.
You didn't take it too personal.
No, and I fundamentally, like, what I was trying to say with that was, like, something that I felt, like, good about. Like, basically there's unseen kind of implicit things that happen that kind of keep people, women in their lane or whatever.
Yeah.
And that was sort of before we were as open as we are now about, like, the various forms of sexism and, like, adjacent things like that can happen in, like, the workplace and so on. But no, it was just, like, it was funny. It was kind of weird. Yeah, it was fine.
All the years talking to Blake and asking her, you know, what are you going to do when you go to college? Or when she was in college, what are you going to do? And it was always journalism. And I tried my best to talk her out of it, but she wouldn't. She wouldn't listen to me.
You didn't want to lead her astray.
I'm here. I'm telling you, don't do it. Run in the other
Do you
direction.
remember, like, why I wanted to do this whole thing? 'Cause
Are you looking inside right now these days and asking?
Why did I?
What was my motivation
I
again?
made choices and they're not good ones.
do you remember why I...
No, she said no. Seriously.
No, but seriously.
but
No, all
seriously.
jokes aside.
Yeah. Why did I choose this profession?
Was there some sort of thing that I told you?
Well, she did choose that path, and then she gets a job on March 16th, actually, to know the date, covering healthcare for Business Insider. Covering healthcare.
What do you think
March
she wrote about?
16th in 2020. Yeah, what do you think was on her beat there for a while?
Had it happened at that point?
Yep. Yeah, I started work the week that New York City shut down, and we left. Like, the day I started work, the day after, me and my partner at the time, to flee the mutant virus that we thought was going to kill everyone. So, and then, yeah, I covered COVID for a while, damaged ventilators and shortages in testing and oh god, like, yeah, you name. One story I really liked was the ethics of like how doctors would choose which people to save if the hospitals became overwhelmed. That didn't end up happening, but I got to talk to bioethicists and stuff. Yeah, it was like a decently challenging introduction to the workforce.
thrown into the deep end.
Yeah, and I was alone,
Yeah.
So
Not in office setting, not people showing you.
Nope. Just me and my computer in a bunker.
Writing about the end of the world.
Writing about the end of the world. It was all light stuff.
And you're still a business insider, still covering healthcare, but now you're a lot more tech part of it.
Yeah, now I'm a little more kind of investigative, I would say. And I do pretty long form features generally about the tension between entrepreneurs and tech who are trying to change healthcare with the kind of reality of healthcare and how hard it is to change. And that's been wild. Yeah, because COVID changed the healthcare landscape, and a lot of funding went into early companies in healthcare that were trying to do virtual care and stuff. And we covered that a lot. And then a year or two later, we covered kind of the negative consequences of that. It kind of caused a lot of growth at all costs cultures inside these companies that were trying to grow too quickly and kind of harmed patients maybe sometimes by accident, or harmed employees working for those companies. And yeah, so it's been kind of a whole arc of COVID kind of at the end of the day, when I joined, and now differently.
Well, what do you know about tech and healthcare now that you didn't know before you started on this beat?
When I started, I was meant to cover disruption, Amazon coming into healthcare and changing everything. And what I ended up covering was Amazon shutting down its healthcare division, and all these other tech companies really struggling too. So I would say what I learned is just what the people who want to change healthcare are up against, I guess, and the kind of tough realities of that industry. That, I mean, everyone wants it to change because it sucks and it's confusing and expensive. So you kind of root for them, and you kind of are disappointed by them and the way they approach things. And yeah.
Have you found your niche? Is this something you think you'll keep doing, or is there a different beat you think you'd like to explore?
I'm pretty open to experimentation at this point. I think some aspects of that job are depressing, if you can't tell. And I'm kind of interested in flexing other muscles of writing, telling more human-centered stories. I'm interested too in stories and finding a way to give voice to the communities around me. I'm always covering far off people and places and rich people, and for in the audience sometimes it feels like it's rich people trying to read about rich people, which is fine, but it's there's it can feel disconnected to the world around me. So I'm kind of interested in I guess experimentation to that end.
What was it like being a Beaufort girl living in New York City for 3 years?
I liked it. Coming from a small town, everyone knows everything about you. Everyone knows where you've been. I had a lot of relationships end in high school for that reason, and it was nice for me being anonymous. And then you kind of deal with the other side of that, like losing. I think the older I've gotten, the more I see like the support that exists here in the way that like people help. But initially I was really into that in Brooklyn. Like the music's cool, like the food is great. I saw myself kind of in the people there, and I felt like I fit in kind of with that like direct communication. Like there's a lot more here of like not really saying you know what you mean, and it's more of like a dance in the South, and in New York people would be like, I don't like that. And I liked that. But yeah, probably not a forever home.
And now in West Virginia.
Now in West Virginia.
And that's more like home, I expect.
West Virginia's kind of got its own thing going on. There's like beach Southern culture, Southeastern
totally
culture, agree. And then there's like West Virginia, and it's
Appalachia.
Yeah. People in the mountains are relaxed like they are on the beach, but it's a different kind of relaxed entirely.
Totally. Yeah, it's hard to explain. I feel like I'm still trying to like get to know it and how to like fit in and relate there. It's kind of the challenge of like people my age, I guess, like doing some of like the work that I'm doing is like working remote. We have this like challenge of like relating like to our communities better. So that's kind of where I'm at with West Virginia. I'm kind of like curious. I'm like kind of trying to figure it out. Starting to kind of care about it. But it's also just like wild, and there's parts of it that I don't like too, but
it's wild and wonderful. And isn't that the slogan for West Virginia?
It is wild and wonderful. It really is. Like most of the state's undeveloped. I feel like it's got like beautiful rivers and forests.
Do you get out there a lot? Do you still get out there and run sometimes?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm running. I go like backpacking a lot and camping. I'm actually dating someone there who's from here, so that's cool. And we have like a lot of love for the outdoors or whatever.
Well, where does the competing from the time you're 12 to the time you're 22, and then boom, that just falls off a cliff? How do you scratch that itch when you're an adult?
Well, so for a few years after graduating, I was training, and I had like big goals. I was training like under that same coach. I had my 5th year at UNC to see how fast I could get it in the 1500, so different training. I got super fit. Like there was stuff I was doing that I had never done. I remember one day I ran like 10 miles at 6:20 pace. In my college self would have like, I couldn't even do 3 miles at. Well, I could do 3, but not 4. But I think some of that just came from a place of like fear of not knowing, of not like meeting my potential and stuff. And I think when it's more negatively motivated in that way, it's like it's not enough to like keep going. So I sort of just like didn't have enough like joy in that pursuit, and I fell off. And now it's really funny because without trying to like win like the Olympics or whatever, now I'm just like, well, what's the point of like going to the gym if I'm not like, so I have to find a happy medium, and I'm still kind of in the process of that.
I'm sure you're not the only former athlete that's ever struggled with that process.
Yeah, we all do. I mean, it's a big identity meltdown when you get to the end that road. And I think like at the end of the day, like we're all athletes. Like I'm still an athlete like every day, but it's like how do you like express that without some of these like institutions and like guardrails? And the answer is sort of unclear, and like whatever you want, and like your 20s are weird, and like you just have to figure out what you want.
Well, Lil Dodge, as she goes by, or the Dodge Dart, as I tried to make that a nickname a thing, but it never
You
caught
did
on.
try to make that a thing.
Every time I talk to her, I tell her that's the last time I'm ever going to talk to her. I'm never going to have to interview her again, and now here we are. I don't think that's ever going to stop. Apparently, I'll be interviewing her when she's in her 40s. But thank you so much for coming in here and talking to us today. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for talking to little old me.